Greetings and salutations, comrades. Hope this finds you well. Quick shout out to the two Uber comrades supporting my channel and this content on Patreon, my partner. Thank you. And Independent Left News. Definitely check out Independent Left News. They're doing a lot of great things and have some announcements going forward about some of the awesome collaborations that they've kind of working on behind the scenes. But that's a topic for a different day. So this is an interesting, if not very disturbing, but not frankly super surprising article I found at Common Dreams, detailing the DEA's role in spying on racial justice movements during 2020. Obviously that coincided with the Black Lives Matter movement, and people of color, particularly Black people in particular, getting murdered indiscriminately by the police in the United States. And just this huge massive movement, just so many people getting in the streets all throughout the United States, trying to stand up to these to this brutal unaccountable system, again, where so many people are murdered by the cops each year, and most of them face no type of accountability for just murdering people in cold blood, particularly, again, people of color. And so instead of on a systemic level addressing this issue, the powers that be, this case, the apparatus of the security state, the DEA, was actually spying on people who were rightfully upset, rightfully outraged that Black people, people of color, were getting murdered by the cops on a daily basis. The DEA was more concerned on spying on these people who were out in the streets advocating that this state-sanctioned murder stop. So again, obviously the DEA is another organization that definitely needs to be abolished, right? So I'll link this down below. New records reveal scope of DEA spying on 2020 racial justice protests. Crew counted at least 51 instances where agencies enlisted DEA to secretly monitor protests engaged in First Amendment protected activity. But again, this is nothing new. We have, throughout, the course of social justice movements throughout the history of the United States, always, they more often than not are, infiltrated by, the state actors, whether it be, FBI, local police, DEA, in this case, to try to, sabotage, to try to throw a monkey wrench in these movements that are trying to, address these really, important issues, like people, in this case, people getting indiscriminately murdered by the cops, basically on a, daily basis, unfortunately, here in, the United States, the Imperial Core, the country, again, that was founded on the genocide of the indigenous people. What I believe 100 million indigenous people were killed as a result of, colonization, the enslavement of African Americans. So the currents of, white supremacy, racism run very deep. They're at the bedrock of the, United States. So not surprising that this has happened, but still, deeply, deeply disturbing, right? DEA approved at least 51 requests from state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies to conduct covert surveillance during racial justice protests last summer, according to records obtained by Crew. The nationwide surveillance operation occurred in cities including LA, Tampa, Denver, and St. Louis, and involved agents infiltrating crowds undercover, as well as aerial and vehicular surveillance to monitor protests. I mean, just think about the complete disconnect from what's actually happening on the ground, what the state, what the U.S. empire, what the settler colonial regime spends its resources on: infiltrating social justice movements and using aerial and vehicular surveillance to monitor these people, instead of, I don't know, maybe trying to hold these killer cops accountable, maybe working to defund and abolish the police. Because again, the police, especially in the context of the United States, do not make people safe. What makes people and communities safe is actually investing in the material conditions, like giving people jobs, like a living wage, like access to healthcare, education, housing, food, water, electricity, etc., etc. You meet people's basic needs, you give them a quality of life. That's going to make people a lot fucking safer. Instead of doing that, the DEA, the settler colonial regime, is spending money to surveil them. While we can't get health care, people can't get reparations, can't get student loan debt canceled, we can't, scale back the U.S. empire, but money printed go for domestic, surveillance programs in the United States and, obviously the U.S. empire abroad. The operations were part of a 2-week expansion of the DA's domestic surveillance authority by Justice Department leadership in June 2020. As first reported by BuzzFeed News, an initial release of records obtained by Crew is an ongoing Freedom of FOIA request. FOIA Act lawsuit detailed DA surveillance efforts in Philadelphia, Chicago, and Albuquerque. The new records reveal the full scope of the DA's surveillance operations last summer. While some agencies sought DA help with apprehending people suspected of theft or looting, who fucking gives a shit, right? Crew counted at least 51 instances where agencies enlisted DA to secretly monitor protesters engaged in First Amendment protected activity. California, the DA approved surveillance requests submitted to its Los Angeles division office by police department Santa Monica, LA, Long Beach, Baldwin Park. The Santa Monica Police Department specifically sought the assistance of DA agents to support undercover surveillance operations. And they were all approved. Look at that, undercover. Jesus Christ. Florida DA approved a request submitted to its Tampa district office by the University of South Florida, undercover, to pose as members of a scheduled vigil. Jesus, on fucking at the university's Martin Luther King Jr. Plaza. Press reports show that the vigil was peaceful and proceeded without incident. Again, to an extent, there are outside agitators at these events. It's the fucking police. It's the DEA coming in, right? The DEA also approved requests from Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to provide a full agent intelligence analyst to work hand in hand with officers. Some cities, the DEA provided aircraft surveillance. Again, look, the fucking disconnect. We can't even get fucking universal health care during a pandemic where we've had, at this point, 700,000 plus people die. Can't even move the ball an inch on that fucking hugely important issue, literally life or death. But money printer go to surveil, these fucking social justice movements. It's disgusting, but not surprising, unfortunately, right? U.S. Customs and Border Protection's Air Division requested assistance of DA's San Antonio District Office to conduct surveillance during the schedule for June 2nd. I mean, Jesus, just look at all these fucking examples. Many cities requested that DEA agents monitor protests from within while undercover. The 2 police departments of upstate New York requested that DEA agents dress in plain clothes. So again, if you're attending any of these, social justice movements and, somebody looks out of place, they look like a cop, they look like a Fed, unfortunately, there is a good chance that they are, these agent provocateurs, if you will. So, keep your eyes open, be careful, trust your instincts, right? In New Jersey, the Newark Police Department, Essex County Sheriff's Office requested the DA conduct surveillance to identify protest leaders and agitators who are inciting violence. Similarly, records obtained by Crew in April showed that law enforcement officers in Philadelphia requested the DA identify protest leaders. Jesus Christ, dude. Intelligence on the again, just like the contradictions here are just becoming just greater and greater with every day, every year, every month here in the Imperial Core. Like, again, unlimited amounts of money to surveil, to imprison, to continually to brutalize people involved in these social justice movements, again, to murder people indiscriminately by the police, particularly people of color and poor people as well. We also have the world's largest prison population in the land of the free. all the while, the social programs, what little, social safety net we had in the US has just deteriorated, rapidly. The, contradictions are just really coming to a head, it seems like. Um, um, Similarly, Asbury Park Police Department, New Jersey requested mobile vehicular surveillance to provide intelligence on agitators and radical groups such as, I wonder what that redacted part, right? The stark difference between the federal law enforcement preparation for racial justice protests last summer and the failures in preparation for the white nationalist attack on our Capitol on January 6th demands close scrutiny. The full extent of protest surveillance must be made public to prevent future politically motivated responses, abuses by law enforcement. But again, that's knowing this shit that happened, knowing that they, are surveilling these protest movements in so many different places across the U.S. is good. But to actually get at the heart of the issue, we need to defund and abolish the police, as well as, agencies like the DEA, the CIA, ICE, Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, etc. So knowing about it's good, but we need to take that extra step in my opinion. So again, deeply disturbing, but not surprising. So if you're out, in the streets at these protest movements, keep your head on the swivel. If somebody looks suspicious, sketchy, they could be, undercover, agent provocateurs. So be careful. Be careful out there, folks. Like the video if you like the damn video. Subscribe for more content. All part of the people. Peace. Much love.